Well, good morning and welcome to all those of you who are online. Probably a lot of you stayed home this morning to stay all nice and warm in a blanket, so we envy you all. But we are here down live from NorthPointe Church, and we're just great to be together again. This is awesome. So sorry about last week. We didn't expect that weather to be so severe so quickly, so we missed you all, but we are glad you're here with us. We're excited about a new series that starts today. But if you are here, you can stand and join with us. We're going to sing together for a little bit.
seated.
So we are into our new year already, which is hard to believe. We're like halfway through the month of January, and today's going to be a pretty crazy day with a snowstorm coming our way. I don't know, those of you online, you're on different areas, but I know we're supposed to get inundated with some snow tonight. And right now it's very cold, but it's warm in here, which is nice. So hopefully if you are in the area, you could come out and join us here in person next week. That'd be awesome. So we are starting a brand new series this week, and I'm excited about this, and we were going to start it 2 weeks ago, and then one thing after another and after another, but we are here starting a brand new series and looking forward to this. And if you're online with us, there is easy ways to see what's going on. You can, we ask you to fill out the connection card, and that's a connection tab that you see up there. If you're in person, we have a connection card that are on the back table back there, so if you would love to fill it out, we'd love to get your prayer request. If you're newer, love to get your name, just to let us know that you are here. And online, you also have a giving tab. And so if you'd like to give towards this ministry, that's an easy way online. In person, there are envelopes on the back table, and there's a box in the back. But we really appreciate your gifts, we really do. And they make things happen, especially pay for the heat right now, because that's really cranky out here. So thank you so much for giving to this ministry. And it is neat to see lives being changed. It's neat to see people online. It's so neat that we're a bigger church just because we have people online with us, and so thank you those who connect with us there. And it's neat to chat with you. So earlier I was chatting with some of you online, so how cool is that? So it's amazing how God continues to change the church and our ability to connect and reach out to people, and that's what church is about. We're here to reach and to share the gospel with other people so that they can find Jesus Christ and find hope. And the gospel thing, and here's the thing with the gospel is not a one-time action. And listen to this carefully. The gospel is a continual daily thing where Jesus Christ is changing us all the time because of the gospel. And so that is just so neat that God continually wants us to draw us to him and understand the gospel more and more each day. So let's pray together. Father, thank you so much for being able to be together. And it's been a while since we've been in person together, so we're just grateful for that. Thank you for those who are here and are part of our service. Thanks for the team, whether they're singing or playing or in our tech area, or they make things happen to prepare us for Sunday mornings. Just so grateful for the many hands that it takes to make things happen. So Lord, may you just work in our hearts and our minds today as we break into a brand new series, and we look forward to what you're going to do. So we commit this time to you through Jesus Christ. Amen. So what is it? Why do some people have the knack to be able to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and, they go either down to the gym or they work out in their home and they work out for a good half hour, maybe longer. Then they have a really healthy breakfast. They sit down, they read for a while, maybe they pray for a while. And, by like 7 o'clock, they're like well into their day. And others of us are still in bed at 7:30 and the alarm hasn't even gone off for the first time, right? Why is that? Why do some manage to, and you've heard stories, or maybe you have friends, or maybe you did this, but they have the ability to, they started their own business. And not only that, they were able to purchase a house and they remodeled their house. In the meantime, they're coaching their kids' little league basketball or baseball or something like that, and then they're learning French on their way to work every day. Like, why do people do that? Like, how do some have such a drive to do that, while others are still trying to figure out what to eat for breakfast in the morning? What makes it so different? Why is that? Why do others have such a drive, and others figure out all the excuses why they can't or why they shouldn't? Some are driven just to succeed, aren't they? And yet, when some people are driven to succeed, it's not just to succeed. Some people are driven because they're afraid of failure, and that's what drives them. There's a question that we should ask. We should all ask this. It's a good question. And it's what drives me in life? What is it that drives me? I mean, it's a big question. It's an important question. What drives you? Why do you wake up in the morning? Why do you work hard or not work hard? What occupies your time, your mind, your thoughts? Or what drives you to come up with excuses on why not to? Now, if you're like many people, I hope, ordinary people, probably ordinary, I feel like I'm ordinary, right? If you're like most of us have no idea. I mean, honestly, we don't. We get up, we do what we do, right? Because the alarm went off, we get up and we do our thing, whatever our thing is. And we don't really think why we do it. We just sort of do it. We're just almost programmed to do it. We get up and we do that because we did it yesterday, and now we're going to do it tomorrow, and it's just sort of the things we do. And we wake up each day and we go to work probably because we have to work, and we're not really sure why we chose that career or anything, but we're in it, and we do it. And so we could pay our bills because that's important, because they come up at the end of the month, and whether you want them to or not, they're there. They show up in the mailbox, and so you got to pay your bills, and you got to have food, and you got to have a house or apartment, and you got to do these things. And so what really drives us is money, right? I mean, not really noble when you think about it that way, right? But it does, let's face it, money's a good motivator, right? I mean, it was Zig Ziglar who said, money isn't everything, but it's right up there with oxygen, right? I mean, you need it, right? We need it to survive. But it's not really money that motivates us. I think where you take it back with that, I don't want to think that money motivates me, right? And most of us, it's not money, unless you go home and throw dollar bills up in the air and just get excited about that, right? Most people, it's what the money does. So it's money and rewards. It's what we get from the money. It's not the bills we have to pay, but it's the rewards we get from the money we earn. So we can live in the house we have, or the apartment we have. So we could, say, wow, I have this. Why? Because I worked hard and I could pay this bill, and now I can live here. Otherwise, I'd be out on the street, right? And so it's what we get from the money we have. So we can drive the cars we drive, and we can take the trips we can do. And so it's the rewards that the money brings. What I want to share is that's one drive, that's just one drive, money and rewards. And what I want to share is I want to share some other drives, some things that underlie why people do what we do. And as I share them, what I want you to do is I want you to think about what it is that drives you. Maybe something that clicks, like, oh, yeah, that's me. That's how I'm wired, right? Another motivation is security, right? Security. Now, security can be tied to money because for some, it's if I have enough, whatever enough is, of the money, then I feel secure. And some of us have, we have that number in our heads that if I have this amount in the bank, then I feel secure. Or if I have this much in my retirement, then I'll feel secure. And sometimes when we get to that amount, then it's like, I'm not that secure, so I got to increase that amount, right? So for some, it's tied to money, but it doesn't have to be. It's the idea, I want to be prepared. I want to have it just in case. It's a whole sense of, I just need this for it's what drives me. I got to be secure. I got to feel like I have a place that's my own or something like that. Another motivation, another driving force is recognition. Some people like to be recognized. Now, it's not necessarily so they can, sometimes it's so they prove that they could do something. I want others to know, yeah, I could do this, right? So that's what motivates them. Sometimes it's because you want to prove you're right. Somewhere along the line, somebody said to you, you could never do that. And you're like, yeah, I can. I could go to college, or I could get a job, or I could start my own business, or, maybe there's even your mom and dad said, oh, you can't do that, And who knows, but somebody put a negative thought in your mind, and so all these years you're like, no, I'm going to prove them wrong. And so sometimes we do it just to prove somebody else wrong. Maybe we got fired from a company or laid off of a job, and they said, you're just not fit for this, right? And so that becomes our motivator. I can do this. I can make it, right? Another drive is control. Some people like to be in control, and maybe it's control of your schedule. Maybe it's control of your time. And if you've ever talked to somebody, if you're in a type of job or career where you have to report to work every day, and it's a 9-to-5 kind of job, and you know somebody who's maybe they're independent business owner or something like that, they have a very different schedule. Some people like that. Some people like I like just clocking in and clocking out and I'm done, But some of us just like that control. We want to be in control. We don't want to have to depend on anybody. We want the sense of independence. Some are driven by, I want to do the best. I want to do the best. So I will do the best at whatever I can. I want to be the best, right? And so I want to be the best at this occupation, or I want to be the best at playing an instrument, or I want to be the best at whatever it is, management, leadership. I just want to be the best there is. And so you work really hard. You're really driven to be the best you possibly can be. Now, some have an ideal motive like that. Others are driven, I just can't be number two. Like, it's not like I have to be the best. I just don't want to lose, right? And so that's an underlying motivation. So there's a lot of motivations, right? Some are driven by power. And power is a tricky one, It's the idea of being in control, but it's more than that. It's you want to have power, sometimes over a situation, sometimes over other people. We see this with our, celebrities, right? The sense of there's that sense of fame and power that comes where the media is drawn to them and they gravitate towards that. They love that. You can see it in our politicians, not all of them, but you see that a lot where there's a sense of power and they like the power and they try to take power, Some are driven by the opposite. They like to help people. They really get a lot out of helping people. Now, sometimes this could be another underlying drive where you want to be needed or you want to be liked, and so that's why you're helping other people. But some people really just want to see other people's lives changed. Now, some have a drive that's hard to put your finger on it. It's something underneath. It's something that it runs deep inside of them, and it's a passion. And they wake up with it. I mean, they go to sleep with it. And if you're around a person with passion, it's contagious and yet you can't catch it. It's like you're drawn to them because they're just so passionate about it. And you want to be it, and it's like, man, how do you get that? And you don't know how to get it because it's hard to really put your finger on it. But they truly love what they do. They wake up in the morning because they know this is what I was made for. This is why God made me. And this is why I live life. And it's just a passion, right? So there's a whole bunch of things. But here, what I want you to do for the next little while, look at these 8. These are just eight drives, 8 motivations, And these are the top ones that are out there. There's probably a lot of others. But as you're looking at them, what I want you to do is, what is it that drives you? Now, it's not easy, is it? Because sometimes we don't want to see that side of us, right? And sometimes when we look at that, what is it? It's a mix of emotions. It's a mix of motivations, isn't it? Because you're like, yeah, that's sort of me, but no, that's me. No, wait a minute, that's me, right? And it's hard to figure it out because we're all different, and God made us all different. And that's what's so exciting, because God did make us different. But you see, what drives us is where we invest our energy and our time and our resources. And so if that is where we spend our time and our energy and our resources, wouldn't it be good if we figure out what drives us? Wouldn't it be good if we just take some time and say, you know what, this is important, because if all my energy and all my time and money, or a majority of it, is going towards that thing, it would be nice to know what it is. Today we begin a brand new series called Drive. And the thing about drives is what used to drive you maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago, if you're that old and you're 20, it doesn't drive us anymore, or it may not, because our drives change over time. Sometimes if you've been in a company for a while, what drove you and motivated you and you're excited about that company, if you look back, it's like, yeah, that just doesn't do it anymore. Maybe there's another drive in there. For some of us, what drove us to follow Jesus from the very beginning is not what drives us anymore. Maybe when we started following Jesus, whether it was a year ago or 30 years ago, what really motivated us, what drew our attention to Jesus and to change our lives and to reshape what we do and what we don't do is not what drives us any longer. And maybe sometimes you wonder why. Like, why is that? Like, why was I so driven back here and now I'm not like I was anymore? You see, sometimes our drives can take us away from God, and sometimes our drives are changed by God for a certain reason. If we're a follower of Jesus Christ, it's important, because we want to give our best to our God, what it is that drives me. What drives you in life? Now, we're complex. We are very complex individuals. And it's not easy to figure out. I mean, just looking at some of the drives, the motivations, you look at them and it's like, man, I'm not really sure, right? Because it's hard. And then God tells us, hey, as much as you want to know your heart, I'm the only one who can really know your heart. So even trying to figure out our motivations are hard. Yet we're all driven by something. And that something compels us to spend time there, to spend money, to engage in relationships in that. And it occupies our thoughts. And we know our thoughts become actions, and actions become habits, and habits determine our life. And so it's important to think of what drives me in life. Now, maybe another approach, because it is hard, is maybe instead of trying to figure out what drives us, and hopefully along this journey for the next 6 weeks, we will find out a little bit more about what drives us, but maybe another approach would be to explore another question, and that is, what drives Jesus? I mean, if we want to follow Jesus, right, we want to be like Jesus, then that's a good question. What drove him? Why did he choose to say this and not to say that? Why did he choose to heal this person and not heal this person? Why did he choose the 12 and not a different 12? Why did he do what he did? And when we look at Jesus, what I want to do is figure out for the next 6 weeks, just look at 6 of the drives in the life of Jesus Christ. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read the Gospels, okay, and I like to spend time in the Gospels because I'm just fascinated by the stories all the time. And I'm fascinated by how much we miss all the time. It boggles my mind. It's like, I've read this story like 100 times. How did I miss that, And so it's neat to look at the lives and the events around Jesus. But what surprises me, and I don't know if it does this to you when you read the Gospels, and if you don't read the Gospels, you should, because it's great events. But what surprises me is the stuff that I don't expect Jesus to do that he does, or the stuff he says that I didn't expect him to say. I mean, like the one time where this guy, Jesus he's gathering disciples. People are following him, and they're coming, they're giving up work day, and they're coming to follow him, and they want to listen to his teachings. And as people are coming, he's trying to gather those who are more serious along the way. And this one guy comes up to him and engages Jesus in conversation. He's like, "Yo, Jesus, I really want to follow you." He said, "But my mom and dad are getting a little older in age, and I really need to just go home and take care of them." And, maybe 5-10 years when things settle down, or maybe once they're past, then I'll be more free, and then I'll follow you, Jesus, And Jesus turns to him and says, you know what, let the dead bury the dead. And you're like, what do you mean? Like that's like harsh. But see, in Jesus' mind, he's like, he knows he has 3 years in ministry, and he's thinking, you know what? It's not that what you want to do isn't important, and it's not that it's not a good thing. It's reality is I won't be around anymore. I'm not going to be here. You want to follow me, you got to follow me now. And trust that that'll be taken care of. And then you look at the times where he interacted with the religious leaders, right? And I know sometimes it's easy if you watch the movies or something like that to see the religious leaders as, well, they were just terrible people, right? But they weren't. They were people who, some of them were, but some of them they just followed God, and they were doing what they had been taught to do to follow God, And so you have to put it in perspective of religious leaders of today. And, just take away some of the maybe mainline churches where you might see more of a hierarchy and stuff like that of religious leaders, but that may mimic a little bit more of Judaism. But, there's all kinds of religious leaders, and there's all kinds of people who are driven by religion, not a relationship with Jesus Christ. And they just do things. And when Jesus interacted with these religious leaders, he calls them all kinds of things. He calls them vipers. Calls them to their face hypocrites. He says their father is the devil. I was like, I don't know about you, but that just takes me off guard. I'm just like, wow, that's pretty, wow. And then when you look at the 12, the 12 that were hanging out with him all the time, he's trying to build into their lives, right? And you look at episodes like the one time Jesus was off on his own. He was probably out there praying or, doing his thing. And he came back, and the disciples now they're taking on ministry. So they're learning the ropes a little bit. And they come back to town, and here they are, and they're trying to cast out this demon because somebody is possessed by a demonic spirit, and they can't do it, And Jesus comes back, and his comment is to his disciples? He's like, yeah, how much longer are we going to put up with you guys? And I'm like, whoa, wow. They're trying their best, And we're just taken back. But even in those things, and what Jesus did and didn't do, and what he said and didn't say, he did because of what drove him. And what I want to do today is we're going to look at 3 passages of Scripture. And we're going to look at them just briefly. But we're going to look at 3 events in the life of Jesus where he interacted, and you see this drive. At least I do, and I hope you will, as long as we look at these things, And the first one is a story of a woman that Jesus interacts with. And Jesus is on his way. He's hanging out with the 12, and it may not have been all 12 yet, but because it's early in his ministry. And he's on his way they're going up to Galilee again, and he goes with his disciples through this area of land called Samaria. And you see the Jews, that's just weird for the disciples that are following him, because the Jews would literally avoid going through Samaria. They don't want to interact with Samaritans. Samaritans were, if you don't know, they were half-breeds. They were half Jewish and half whatever else, because they weren't. And so the Jews looked at them as being unfaithful to God. And the Samaritans look, this is just what happened, and we're just part of life, but we want to worship God just like you do. And so there's a lot of tension between the Jews and Samaritans. So they just avoided each other, hated each other. Right? And so Jesus chooses to go straight through Samaria. And as he does that, he then sets up the whole scene by sending his disciples into town to go get some food. And why he's doing that, because he's God and he knows what happens, and he sets up this scene where it literally comes in connection with this woman. And he begins talking to this woman. She had come to draw some water, and they're having this conversation, and Jesus literally takes the time to not only set the scene, to set up the situation, because if he wasn't alone with the woman, it would have been awkward, because he wouldn't have been able to connect at that kind of level. It would have been weird because his disciples, who don't like Samaritans, would have been putting off that vibe all the time. So Jesus got rid of that distraction. And he engages this woman in conversation. They start talking about her life a little bit, and he starts sharing stuff about her life that she's taken back with. Like, how did you know that, right? And so she realizes that there's something special about this guy. And then they start getting into some theological conversation, which is pretty cool. And because it makes you realize that, look, everyday people think about God, and they're ready to engage in conversation. Jesus knew this about this woman, right? So he engages her in this theological conversation. And then she says this, and she says, the woman said, I know that the Messiah, the one called the Christ, is coming, and when he comes, he will explain everything to us. And it's like, I'm not really sure who you are. You obviously have this thing with God because you know a lot about me, but there's one who's coming, and I can't wait for him because I know that he will know me, and I know that he's just going to accept me. And here you have this woman who's unaccepted by the Jewish people, and she's also unaccepted by her culture because she has a colorful background, okay? And if you don't know the story, you can read it in John chapter 4. But here she is interacting with this man, and she has this sense, and her knowledge of who the Messiah is and her understanding and hope of who the Messiah is when he comes, he's going to know me. He's going to understand me. He's going to understand my whole life situation, and he's not going to excuse it, but he's going to hear my side of the story, kind of thing. And you get this sense of what an ideal sense that she has of this Messiah. Now Jesus, over here in this conversation, and it must have been so cool because this is one of those reveal moments where Jesus knows who she's talking to. She has no clue, right? And it's almost like watching, if you ever watch in a Hallmark movie where she's really a princess or he's really a prince, and they haven't revealed that yet, or they don't know, and all of a sudden they're ready to reveal it. It's almost like when Darth Vader told Luke he was his father. It was not that at all because that was a bad story. But you understand, it's the reveal. It's that moment in time where all of a sudden he's ready to say it, and he must have been grinning from ear to ear. And then this is what Jesus says. He says to her, he declared to her, he said, I, the one speaking to you, am he. And here she is talking about this Messiah and how great he is, and he's over here just yeah, that's me. The one you've been having this conversation with, that's me. I've been speaking to you. Why did Jesus do this? Why did Jesus, out of thousands and thousands of people that he could have interacted with on a one-to-one basis, all alone, why did he pick this woman? Why did he set up the situation so that they could converse like this? Why did he do that? Because there's this one thing under him that drives him. Next story. These next two are after the resurrection. And so I just want to give you, so we're jumping way ahead, okay? So that was early John in Gospel of John. These next two are after the resurrection. And the first one is with a person who gets a really bad reputation. And if you're not that familiar with the Gospels, if you're not even that familiar with Jesus, you know the story of doubting Thomas, don't you? I mean, you just know. And who knew that 2,000 years later, we'd be selling cars and selling Frosted Flakes based on a character, doubting Thomas, right? But we do. And here they are. It's the morning. First of all, it's the morning of the resurrection. Okay, let's start there. And Mary goes down to the tomb, and she's all excited excited in the sense of she's going to finish what should have been done the night before, but they were rushed and all that kind of stuff with the Passover. And so she's going out to finish basically embalming the body of Jesus. And she goes there and she doesn't see Jesus, the body's gone, right? So she runs back, tells the disciples. And now Peter and John, who hear the news, they don't believe her. They don't believe the body's gone. They don't believe that Jesus had risen from the dead yet. Right? But we don't give them a bad rap, okay? But anyway, so they run down to the tomb, they see that Jesus isn't there, and then they go back, wondering, okay, well, I don't know what happened to him, right? Because they don't understand yet, right? Mary gets, because she hangs out the tomb a little longer, she gets to interact with Jesus, which is so cool. But that night, Jesus then shows up to all of them. And so they're hanging out together, the 12, plus probably a few others like Mary and 11 disciples, because Judas is gone at that point. And they're hanging out, and Jesus shows up in their midst, right? And that's freaky, and they're freaked out, and he says, no, I'm alive, and all this kind of stuff. But Thomas is not there. Thomas, for whatever reason, wasn't there. And Thomas didn't believe. He says, I need to see him, right? Now, 8 days later, now that's a long time. That's a really long time. If you just think about it. So, here Thomas he wasn't there at the event. He comes later and he's like, I missed it? Like, I missed him? And they're like, yeah, he's alive. He's like, no, I don't believe it. And for 8 days, he's wrestling through this. 8 days, he's interacting with his other buddies and friends. And they're saying, I don't believe, you don't believe, Thomas, come on, he's real. He showed up to us. And he's like, they're probably thinking, I don't know, they might saw a delusion, maybe it was a ghost, whatever, but he can't be alive. So 8 days he's wrestling through this. And then Jesus shows up, and this is what he says. He says, peace be with you. Now that's just freaky, because here they are hanging out in the room again. The door's probably locked because they're all afraid that they might get arrested. And Jesus just shows up, which reminds us that Jesus sees everything, he hears everything, okay? He's just there all the time, okay? He's everywhere. And he shows up in their midst, and he says, peace be with you. And then John records, this is the interesting thing. John records no other words in that event except directly to Thomas. And listen to what Jesus says to do. He says to Thomas, he says, put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it in my side, and stop doubting and believe. And it's like, Thomas, it's okay. I know it's hard. Like this has never happened before, right? I know it's hard. But here's my scars, okay? Just touch them, just feel them, right? There's no scolding. Of course, he didn't scold Peter and John for not believing either, right? But he just says, just touch me. Just touch me. And you almost get the impression, and I don't know if you have a vivid memory or a vivid imagination when you read scriptures, but you try to see the event, and I almost see Thomas right in front of him, and he's probably apprehensive to get close. And it's almost like you could see Jesus taking Thomas's hand, and he's like, here, touch him. Here, look at this scar. And for guys, it's a cool thing, right? The scars, right? And it's like, here, just touch me. And you wonder if when John, because John writes 3 letters. He writes his gospel, he writes Revelation, and he writes 3 letters. And I wonder in his first letter that he writes, he talks about the Messiah as we have seen him, we have touched him. And I wonder if that's what he's thinking. Where Thomas literally touched the side of Jesus and believed, right? Why does he do that? Why is this so important to Jesus to present himself not just to the 12, but to focus in and zoom in on Thomas? To seize that moment with Thomas. Why? Because there's something that drives him. Next event. The next event, actually Thomas is there too. 5 of the gang is hanging out. Okay, there's Thomas, there's Nathaniel, and there's Peter, James, and John. And they're hanging out on the beach, and then Peter comes up with an idea, and he goes, let's go fishing, right? And it is one of those things where they're in the moment of life, because Jesus is not dead anymore. He's risen. They know he's risen, but they're not sure what to do yet, because the Holy Spirit did not come. They're not empowered. And it's in a moment in life, and maybe you've been there, I don't know if you've ever been there, where life is just at a standstill. Like you honestly don't know what to do. Because you don't know what to do tomorrow. Like there's something, and there's going to be something, it's not like you're on die or anything. You just don't know what to do. And you can't go back because something has changed. Whatever has changed. And you're in this moment in life where it's like, I don't know what to do. Like I honestly just don't know what to do. And this is where they were. They were like hanging out. Like, what do we do? Right? And so Peter's like, let's go fishing. Let's go fishing. And so they go out and they go fishing and they're hanging out. And now Peter, remember where Peter is in his frame of mind, okay? He had promised at the Last Supper when they're all together, he had promised that even though everybody else would fall away, he wouldn't. He promised Jesus that. And then when he was put on the spot, when he was asked, does he know Jesus? He said, no, I don't even know the man. And that's got to be the voice that's still ringing in his head. And up until this point, John records no interaction with Jesus and John. I mean, you have the interaction with Thomas and Jesus, but you don't have interaction with Jesus and with Peter over what had happened. Now here they are fishing. They go out fishing, and guess what? They fish all night and they catch nothing. And I bet even coming back into the shore, they're like, oh, this reminds us of the time before we knew Jesus, right? And I don't know, maybe they're joking along a little bit, and they come in, and there's a guy standing out on the shore. And they don't know it's Jesus. There's just this guy standing on the shore. And I don't know if that's the thing back then. People just stand on the shore and they tell you what to do. But they pull up, and he's like, cast your nets on the other side of the boat, right? And so that's what they do, and they cast the nets on the other side, and they catch this huge amount of fish, and they're like, and then they look on the shore and they realize this is Jesus, right? And so they pull in all these fish, and Jesus is hanging out. They have a cookout, they have breakfast together, and they're hanging, and then Jesus says to Peter, and it's not recorded, but because of what happens, he basically says to Peter, says, let's go take a walk. And I don't know about you, but I would have been like, I don't know if I'm ready for this yet, right? I mean, just me and him. It's easier when we're in a group, because then we don't have to have that conversation, right? And yet they did, and so they take this walk, and Simon, Jesus says to Simon, he says, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? That's a big question. Do you love me more than these? Not do you love me? Not, are we okay? No, do you love me more than these, right? Two more times, Jesus asked the same question to Peter. And Peter responds both times, and he responds the third time, very similar, and this is what he says. He said, Lord, you know all things, and you know that I love you. Lord, it's like, Lord, you know my heart. And even if I let you down, because you know where I'm really at. He says, I love you, like I do. And even if I mess up, and I still love you, right? And through these words and this interaction that takes place really quickly, really, there's this restoration of the relationship of Jesus and Peter. And it's so neat to watch because, Peter confessed his sin. I mean, and if you don't know the story, he went out after he realized he had denied Jesus. He went out and he cried, and he was beside himself, right? And he was probably wrecked for days, right? And Jesus, he went to the cross, and so we're forgiven, right? And so both sides have been, justified in what they've done, but they've never come together and talked about it. And here, this process, they go through this little conversation where it's a restoration of the relationship, because Peter and Jesus are really close. I mean, Peter's like his right-hand man. And he spent more time with Peter, James, and John than the others. That's what we see in the scriptures, And they had to go through this. And it's just like any other relationship. You can forgive somebody, and someone can ask forgiveness and stuff like that. But unless you have that inner connection of some way saying, we got to talk about this, right? You're not going to, the relationship is going to stay apart. It's going to stay separate. There's not a reconciliation. Just like it is in our earthly relationship, it is with our Heavenly Father. You got to talk, And so they talked and they reconciled. And each time Peter responds, Jesus is responding to him. And he's given Peter instructions, and he does it the third time. The third time he says this again. He says to Peter, he says, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Peter, you began following Jesus to be used by God, right? And maybe right now you're thinking, right? This is where Jesus is going. How can God use me? How can he possibly use me? I mean, how can I matter? How can, look what I did. Look where I've come from, right? And Jesus is communicating to Peter, look, I'm not done with you yet. I'm not done with you. And I'm calling you to do something, not just for you. I'm calling you to do something for me. I'm calling you to feed my sheep. You have to let go, Peter, of where you failed and where you will fail again. You have to let go with that. I forgive you. I went to the cross. That's why I went there, to forgive you. And so Peter, just do what I'm asking, right? And then he goes further and he challenges Peter with the very first words he challenged when they first met. And he says this, follow me, follow me. Jesus challenges us all the time that those who want to follow him, that you're going to be pushed. Now, I don't know, we don't like that, okay? But Jesus did that. He pushed people. He pushed them physically, he pushed them emotionally, and he pushed them spiritually. He says, if you want to follow me, I'm going to push you. Like a coach. Like a coach on that field. And that's the picture of Jesus that I know we don't like. It's like that coach on the field that is pushing you when you're ready to give up. I'm going to push you. And I will push you physically, emotionally. I will push you spiritually because I see something more in you. Maybe if our drive to follow Jesus has changed from where it first started, maybe we have to go back like Peter to that place where we first started following Jesus. And it first connected with us to, I want to follow Jesus. What is it that drove us? Why did Jesus go to such crazy lengths to connect with a woman who just felt like her life was a mess? To connect with Thomas, who felt like there's just no way he can believe in this. To connect with a Peter who'd probably given up on himself, who probably thought he could never be used to lead other people. Why did Jesus do that? Because there's this thing that drives Jesus, and it's that people matter. This is why Jesus does what he does. This is what underlies everything he does, that people matter. And from the time Jesus interacts with people and he reaches out, he's reaching out to offer hope. And at times he's harsh. And at times he's like, how much am I going to put up with you guys, right? But he had compassion because he saw people where they were at, but he saw where they could be. And if you look at the scriptures, if you see Jesus interacting and you see this, where people are first, because Jesus wants to see us be so much more than we are. People are first on his heart. That's what drove Jesus. And if that's what drives Jesus, maybe that's what should drive us. Father, we want to thank you. Thank you that you are a God who is so compassionate on us. That you love us so much that you go out of your way to connect with us in a way that doesn't even make sense to us. So Lord, if people matter to you that much, help us to see that more. Help us to see your heart. Help us to get a sense for this compassion that you have. And Lord, help us to put people in that same place. And Lord, it's hard. It's hard to get out of our comfort zone. It's hard to break free from some of our doubts and our insecurities. But Lord, I'm asking that you would help the drive in us towards people mattering be more important than the drive for protecting ourselves. That we would look for opportunities. We would create opportunities. We would look for ways to engage other people. That we might encourage, we might push a little. To bring them closer to a relationship with you or closer in their walk with you. So, Lord, may you create this drive in us deeper, that people matter. We ask this through Jesus Christ. Amen.
Why don't you stand with us again?
Here I lay my burdens down, 'cause my worries in your love, casting every care on you. I have carried them enough. When not alone, here within His love, Emmanuel, He is still with us. When the world becomes too much, near the cross I will remain, until every fear is still. At the mention of your name, we're not alone, here within His love. Emmanuel, He is still with us. We're not alone, here
Well, thanks for joining us this morning. It was great to be together again. And next week, we continue our series called Drive. Bring a friend, and we'll see you then.